Don't tell this morning's guest you can't do it, because he did. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on All American People. Good morning. Welcome to All American People. This morning we're the 2010 Nonprofit of the Year, as voted on by visitors to allamericancities.com, the American Red Cross. We're visiting in their coastal South Carolina chapter's Emergency Operations Center, and we're focused on a new book, I Can Do That, Advice for Spiritual Entrepreneurs, and we're visiting with its author, General Walter F. Johnson III. Good morning, General Johnson.
Good morning. How are you?
It seems strange saying General Johnson when you think about Chairman of the Board. Whenever Chairman of the General Johnson comes out of my mouth, I understand a lot of folks call you Wally. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm very comfortable with that.
Here in the morning, it's a thrill to get you in. What about this Emergency Operations Center?
That is really nice. We are familiar with the Red Cross. We are big supporters of the Red Cross.
Yes.
We're part of that Carol Burton Society.
I saw that you and your wife Doris have both been active members of the Clara Barton Society, and to think about all the things that happen within the American Red Cross, particularly in this area, the Horry, Georgetown,
right.
Williamsburg counties, three gigantic counties, almost 3,000 square miles that this coastal South Carolina chapter has to serve.
That's right.
It's a big area. What about this title, I Can Do That, Advice for Spiritual Entrepreneurs? How did you come up with that?
Well, strangely, that wasn't the first title. The initial title was The Spiritual Entrepreneur. And we sent the book to our 6 kids to let them review. Rather than bore you with all of their comments, we got 2 comments back. One from our son who was at Harvard in neurosurgery residency. And he said, Dad, you know, the book is very spiritual, and you're very spiritual. He says, you need to name it The Spiritual Entrepreneur. So that's how we got the initial name for Spiritual Entrepreneur from him. Right. And then when we met our publisher, he says, you know, you need to change the title and move away from the original intent of the book. The original intent of the book was to help people start a business successfully and then operate a business successfully. And when we met with the publisher, he says, you know, we're missing a major point here. He says, this book should be biographical. Mm-hmm. You started out in the projects on welfare, made general, and then successfully started and operated a business and then sold it to Lockheed-Martin. Right. Young people need to know about that.
Right.
And you need to come up with a title. And during our discussion, I kept saying, well, I can do that. I can do that.
Right.
And one of the producers says, you know, the name of the title of the book should be I Can Do That.
Yes.
Because you have sort of a can-do attitude. Right. And by the way, we had 5 titles listed, and one of the titles was I Can Do That.
Oh my God, well I want to hold the book up here for viewers to get a chance to see it. And of course the cover there has a great shot, not only a great shot of you, but also of the Eagle. And of course Eagle Group International, I believe the company you founded, which we're going to hear about a little bit this morning. And of course, hopefully if you'd be willing to come back and be with us tomorrow as well.
Okay, I'll be glad to.
It's too tough to fill much of your life, of course, as you said, growing up in the projects and becoming a general in the Army and the Medical Services Division. I mean, what all you've done, and then creating this company and having so many of your family involved in the company. But I want to go back to one thing. You said this would be great for kids, and the exciting aspect there is the fact that at age 56, I believe it was, so this will be that you kicked off the company. I mean, this is great for a lot of adults as well.
Yeah, I always say that it's not only good for the young people, but for the not so young.
Right.
Because at the ripe old age of 56, I started the company and grew it within 12 years to 150 million in revenue, and then sold it to Lockheed-Martin, with the help, of course, of my entire family, especially my wife.
Yes, your wife Doris, who is pictured on the back of the book. There's a great shot of the two of you all relaxing there, and she has been with you for
58 years. Wow. And we've been married for 52 years with 6 kids and 14 grandkids.
That is incredible, Wally. That is incredible. Share with viewers, did you grow up in this area?
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and Gaston Green Projects, better known to Charlestonians as Back to Green. It wasn't the best area. It was a very poor area, matter of fact, back then, and it still is. a very poor area, but that's where I grew up. But I never say I'm poor. I may have had humble beginnings, but I had a lot of rich relatives and friends who gave me things money can't buy. For instance, my values that I use today to help me along. And my parents taught me the value of 2 T's, the capital T, Trinity, and the small t, Trinity. The capital T, Trinity, is Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And then small t, Trinity, is 1, trust in the Lord and the power of prayer. 2, stay in school, get your education. And 3, hard work, hard work, hard work. I've used that my entire life. While I was in the military, when I was an executive with the American Hospital Association, and when I started my company, and I use it even today.
Wow, Wally, you use both, not only the small t, but the big T as well.
Both of them very
Yes.
well, to my advantage.
Absolutely. Well, I've got to say, one of the most exciting aspects of the book for folks, whether they are long Christians, if they've been long in the faith, or just finding out about the Lord, is the opportunity to wrap up every chapter with a prayer. And it's a very clear prayer. It's almost like you could write a book called I Can Pray, or Learn How to Pray, because these are very good, special, easygoing prayers.
Prayer has been extremely important to me. I remember as a kid, my mother would come home and she would say, God answers the prayers of children. And she said, let's kneel down and pray. And we would pray. And very seldom she would tell me what we were praying for. But one day in particular, she says, your dad is going to look for a house or apartment out of the projects. She said, let's kneel down and pray. And we prayed. My dad came home that night and he says, we'll be moving out of the projects. And I said to myself, this prayer works. I've been praying ever since.
The power of prayer.
The power of prayer.
That is wonderful.
Today I pray whenever I get in my car. If I'm in my car for 3 hours, 4 hours, or 5 hours, I pray for 3 hours, 4 hours, or 5 hours. But today's prayers are not so much with my hands up, asking and praising the Lord. About 40% of my prayers today is thank you for the kind of life that God has given me over the years. So I spend an awful lot of time thanking God today for this wonderful life, wonderful wife, great kids, great grandkids.
And Wally, a lot of folks that were in the projects were potentially making those prayers and didn't have the benefit of their father coming home and saying we're moving, but the prayers still continue. A lot of folks continue to say prayers, not always answered immediately, maybe answered 6 months from now or a year from now. You've seen that in the past as well?
Sure, I put in a book, I said, prayer is important, but God has his own timetable.
Right.
I can remember even today, I says, this book is going to be a bestseller someday. And my timetable is right now, but God's timetable may be next year or the year after. And I always like to quote that spiritual, that black spiritual that goes, on time God. He's on time all the time. It's just that we may be a little anxious and want it on our timetable. We don't live on our timetable, we live on God's timetable.
Yes, so true. So true. Those are great words. Starting at a very early age to think about the impact of having not only grandparents, having your grandmother around, the ability to begin praying with her, but a family that was very supportive, and the idea of getting in and getting your education really stuck out.
Very important. Like I said, those values of praying, trusting in the Lord, and staying in school. For instance, I had 27 years in the military. I was the brightest bulb in the lamp. When I was in high school, I was a jock. I liked football and basketball and running track. But I got out of high school. I got into college. I learned I had to know how to study in order to graduate from college. So I learned how to study. And when I got out of college, I said, okay, I'm finished with school. Within a year out of college, I was working on my master's degree. 27 years in the military, 6 of those years were in the classroom. When I left the military after 27 years, I had the equivalent of 3 master's degrees.
No.
So when I started my company, I knew I trusted in the Lord. I knew how to pray.
Right.
I had my education, and I always said nobody will outwork me. So those values just kept me going all along.
That is incredible.
And that education never stops. Even to the day, education is still important. We're still being educated.
That is tremendous,
one way or the
Wally.
other.
What did you love so much about your 27 years of service in the United States Army?
It was so wonderful. I acquired a lot of leadership skills, learned how to manage. God knows I love to travel. Over in Europe, we traveled, my family, my wife and I and kids traveled all over Europe. Had an opportunity to fight for America in Vietnam,
Right.
spent a year in Korea, got a lot of education, met a lot of wonderful people. And, you know, as a successful entrepreneur, people would say to me, I bet you should have started off when you were 21, right out of college. And I says, no, I'll never give back those 27 years I gave to my country in the military. Wonderful years, great experience, acquired a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience, and of course, meeting just wonderful people throughout the time I was there.
A lot of folks now, do you still step out there and encourage folks to step into the military for some of those same reasons?
Yes, I think that military is a very fine, honorable career. Very, very nice. Pay isn't the best, but you're giving back to the country and you're gaining a lot of experience. And where else can you retire at a very young age? I retired from the military before I was 50 years old.
No.
And so I just thoroughly enjoyed it. The military, you get a lot of education. And now they even giving money for scholarships. If you're going out of high school, you can get a scholarship that will take you through, get your education. Very much like what happened after World War II, where a lot of people were able to go and get the education on the GI Bill. Wonderful career. Not for everybody,
Yes.
but a wonderful career. It's really good.
You and Doris met, was this early on? If y'all have been married as long as you shared early on, y'all must have met, unless you're 100, then y'all must have met at a pretty dang early age.
We were very early. It was interesting how we met.
Yeah.
One of my friends, I went to the Catholic school,
Uh-huh.
and called Immaculate Conception School, and my wife went to Burke School, which is now still in existence. Our school went away when we started integration and combined with Bishop England in Charleston. But my wife went to this school in the 8th grade. I was in the 9th grade, and nobody had cars at the time, so people would walk home from the games. And this guy said, I'm going to be walking home with this girl, and she has a friend. Would you walk home with her? And we walked home, and we found out that we had a lot in common. We talked a lot about a lot of things. And says, can I see you again? And we just kept seeing each other, and you would say puppy love, and grew into love over high school and then college. So we just from the beginning, we had a lot in common, and we still do. We talk today as much as we talked when we were dating the first time, and laugh. And she is my best friend without question, by far, from anybody else, my best friend. I suspect I'm her best friend also.
We need to get her on the show and check into that.
Yeah.
How exciting, Wally, the thrill of being with your best friend for 58 years.
And we enjoy it so much right now. We'll sit in bed and laugh and talk. We'll reminisce about the tough times, because things have always not been good. You know, we've had some tough times. On occasions, when we first went into the military as a second lieutenant, I had 2 kids. We had 2 kids.
Right.
And eventually 3 kids. And in the military, I was with the 82nd Airborne Division, and that was one of those units that wanted the starched uniform with the military plates in the front and so on. And I couldn't afford to send my uniform every day to the cleaners to get those starched and those stripes down the side.
Right.
So my wife says, well, I can do that.
Look, she gave you the title of the book a long time ago.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
you know, that's part of the family. We can do that. And she washed the clothes and put heavy starch in it, and she got those military creases just like they were coming from the cleaners.
Wow.
And she did all of that with 3 kids
Wow.
as a second lieutenant. So we talk about that, we laugh, and talk about the first washing machine that we received, about the first freezer, and how we overcome this particular hurdle. I jumped over this setback and got back on track, got the kids educated.
That is tremendous, Wally. That is tremendous. That is incredible. Not only the first 3, but then 3 more kids on the way.
Yes, yes.